Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Archlector George,
and Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of the Age of Madness trilogy with a little hatred. We read through The Moment, Break What They Love, and It Was Bad. So let's get started. Folks, you know the damn deal by now.
The audience must be thanked.
We must
The law.
It's
the king's edict.
The king's justice.
By order of the Lord Chamberlain. We must thank you all. Appreciate you. You guys are so much fun. I noticed a slew of recent Spotify comments, if I'm not mistaken. I would just like to kind of read through a couple. So first off, we got our boy Jose. He's been pretty active on it. Love it. George is right that is Gris coming out of the cells and wisdom of crowds. I can't remember if she did anything else or is even mentioned after that. Okay, so George, thank you.
Well done, George.
Well done, George. Somebody, did not put Tolerable can get it. I don't even know what that was. That was for special guest episode. That's for her. Okay. Go ahead.
She ain't wrong.
She ain't wrong.
Have you ever wanted a fucking demon? No fucking lie to me, Jeffrey.
I mean, maybe. End Kid likes the new spoilers change. No stops, deep dive, nerd out, loves it.
Good.
I hope we're not going too far off tangent for that.
No, I don't.
Yeah, it is. We could just go on about like anything for hours, but
we can. God damn it, Jeffrey and Will, read the devils or I will fong you until your insides are out, your outsides are in, and your entrails will become your extrails. I will pain, lots of pain. J Handle 9, I love that.
I think that's from Knight's Tale.
It's a special episode. The trouble with that's with Jose's episode.
No, I mean the quote itself is from A Knight's Tale.
A Knight's Tale? That's funny.
I think it's Alan Tudyk's character who says it.
You're right. That's been so long since
it's the word fong. I've never seen that anywhere except in A Knight's Tale. So there we go.
Jose has a theory that Javra's mother is one of the missing magi who fucked off the Thond. Okay, love that. Matt Halverson says the New Jersey Stephen Pacey, which obviously I guess is referring to me. Fuck. I love you. I love all you guys. You guys are great. Okay. So honestly, just keep hitting us with comments, on the Spotify app or whatever podcast app that you use, even the YouTubes, and send us emails. Why not? Or send us some DMs. Slide up into our DMs. Try to wine and dine us. Come on. I want to see some effort. I want you to try to get my pants off. Let's do it.
Anytime, Jeffrey, you always talk about
it's
us being liked or like something that's like, oh, you know what we could do for you or something. It always turns into that.
This is what happens when we record in the morning. I get a little freaky. But no, seriously, thank you all. It's been great. We just love it. Just the First Law and fantasy community in general is a great one. We have pockets of weirdness, but it's a great community.
I've just seen here as well. There's a comment on the YouTube, and it was about how Harrison or Jeff, I can't remember, said that the Chagger's kind of like Zins now.
Oh,
this guy's like there should be like street names for Chagger, like Chaggy Chan or
Chaggy. I gotta
see it. Holy shit, that's hilarious.
Agatha Christie, that is amazing. Love that. Again, seriously, keep it up. Additionally, I think the last episode got removed. I saw it posted for one day, but it seems like it's gone now. What is he talking about, George? What did you do?
I didn't do nothing. You blaming me already?
Yeah, that's what the Lord Chamberlain does.
Delegates the blame.
Oh, that might have been because that comment was from a week ago, so that might have been previously. Remember when you accidentally
Oh yeah, I accidentally published an episode 2 days in advance, and then that was our bad.
Okay, no worries.
So if anybody
no
saw that episode and managed to listen to it before I took it off again, then well done, you got an episode 2 days early.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, how long was it out for?
Like an hour, maybe.
If you if you like sped through that, congratulations, you guys are dedicated. We love it. If you're that dedicated, we might have an opening in the Inquisition for you. But yeah, so just, again, thank you all. We love you. We appreciate you. You guys are great. Keep them coming. Keep it coming through all avenues of communication. So we'll move on to our community interaction segment, which is a brief one, as you know, just because we're on a time constraint, folks. And we're just going to remind you to please sign up for the Little Hatred Memeing Every Chapter extravaganza on the House of the Meme Maker subreddit hosted by Sir Spaceman. I think at this point, Sir Spaceman has issued an edict of his own that if the chapters are not filled soon, he is going to start a draft. And it's either get drafted into a chapter or have the Gestapo show up to your place. So, I mean, I think you kind of want to just
that's no choice at all.
Yeah, it's no choice at all, right? At that point, just be a leaf on the water or whatever. So go ahead.
I mean, I think at this point, the entire second half of the book is up for grabs. So come on, guys.
Yeah, hurry the fuck up. So there you go. Just please, go ahead and get to Reddit, subreddit, House of the Meme Maker, and find it's pinned, I believe, and just go ahead and get a chapter. But now we'll just go ahead and start with our read-throughs, and our first chapter read-through is The Moment, which is a very TED Talk title. But we get introduced to Jonas Clover, a Northman of
no renown.
How do I describe
renown?
Minor renown, but of how would I explain this? It's like he was apparently in the past, which we'll talk about that later. But he was a psycho, not kind of like the Bloody Nine, but very whoa. And then he's chilled out, where he's kind of very Calder-esque. I think
he's very,
in the sense of I'm not gonna actively try to seek out a fight. I have just try to seek the moment, right?
Yeah, he's like Calder as if Calder had no ambition.
No, I would say if he's like Calder, if Calder was an actual fighter.
Right. I would say he's like Craw, but without honor or perceived honor.
Yeah. Okay.
Or
Craw is interesting. Craw is interesting.
Or without 3 trees, because 3 trees is actually honorable. Maybe 3 trees without honor. He doesn't have honor.
No, right, but I don't know because they talk. So Calder and him talk about how he's so anyway. Real quick, just to set this up for you, for anybody is a first time reader. Jonas Clover, who used to be called Steepfield, which I'll ask Harrison a question in a second, but Jonas Clover is chilling underneath a tree, eating an apple, while 2 pupils of his are training on how to be good fighters. And spoiler, they are not. They are shitty. They're fighting with sticks and they suck. And he knows that, and he's like, God, these people suck. And Calder walks up to him, Black Calder, right? So they're somewhere with Sour Nightfall's armies or whatever. They're the same vicinity, I imagine. And Calder, if you guys feel like I'm jumping ahead, by the way, please feel free to jump in,
Well, this first bit is literally just him watching and failing to teach these kids how to fight with swords. He kind of just watches them beat each other.
The thing that sticks out to me is the fact that he's just laying down. He's just sitting there he's not actually giving instruction. He doesn't actually seem to care very much. It's very
it's just chilling. It is very much gives a guy just enjoying his retirement,
Yes, absolutely. But fair enough,
Yeah, and I would say this is a matter of the incorrect method, because he is telling them think before you strike, choose your moment, don't just batter each other, but these kids are dumb. Do you know what I mean? That's nicest way I could say it, but I mean they're not grasping what he's saying, so he should alter his delivery, right, of what he's trying to convey. But he's not. He's like, oh my God, if they can't get what I'm saying right here, then they're just hopeless. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's not a good teacher.
Yeah. He's not a good teacher, but also these pupils suck. And so as Calder walks up to him, Jonas, you could kind of see that he's, even though he plays off the lackadaisical kind of thing, he's still kind of always wary. He hears footsteps behind him, and he, takes out a knife and he kind of palms it. And then once he realizes it's Calder, he's like, and he just puts it away. Which is like,
always ready.
Always ready. And so, so let me ask you, Harrison, about the steep field thing.
I have done everything I could to try to find it. He's not in it.
He's not mentioned anywhere else in the trilogy or anything like that, huh?
I mean,
he's obviously just been invented post he would have been around in the Heroes or something. We would have mentioned something.
He was around. Apparently, he was around in the Battle of the High Places and stuff.
Yeah, he does say later that he held the shield for the battle between Fenris and Logan as well.
Exactly.
He's just one of those characters that's kind of always been in the background, but he's not been important enough. But it's also, I find it interesting that he's one of the only Northmen that we know of who has a second name. He's been named twice, which is something that doesn't happen very often, or hasn't ever happened as far as I know.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, because you're talking about Logan Nine Fingers and then the Bloody Nine, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the only other example I can think of.
Right. We don't even know Bethod. He doesn't even have an alternate name.
Bethod doesn't really have a northern name like that.
A northern name, surname, nothing. So, all right. I'm gonna put out a call. I'm gonna put out a call. Oh, put out. Still, that's not even any better. I am announcing a call to arms for the readership. If this is your chance to prove Harrison wrong, if you could find a mention of Steepfield in the original trilogy or the previous books, Harrison will give you a blowjob. So
you don't have to find it. I'll just do it.
So the reason Calder brings it up is Calder introduces Jonas to some random kid, a 13-year-old, or looks about 13-year-old with a cleft lip, watchful eyes, and this guy's pretty quiet and this kid's pretty quiet and kind of just watching the two kids suck at training, right? Do we want to talk about this kid just yet or no?
I'm not really feel like getting into him yet.
No,
it's not because of the spoiler thing. It's just kind of we have other things to talk about.
Yeah, right. He's just there in the background. It's interesting that Joe obviously introduced him there, but the idea is that Calder knows the kind of person that Clover is, and he wants him to kind of give advice and set Stour Shyfall straight.
I find it funny that this kid, I always imagine him now, though, because of, brain rot, modern day brain rot, that he's just sitting there mewing, he's just looking around like a Chad, just, yes, this is all beneath me, or because he's always just standing there in the background. Anyways, you can continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, what I like about this is Calder, he's still as introspective as ever. He's talking to Clover, but he's almost just talking at Clover, or talking out loud about how he's getting real frustrated with Stour because he set fire to Ufrith because he's a bloody idiot. Now, all those years he spent planning on how to take the city, and the moment he gets it, he sets fire to it. That saying that Bethod used to, if you point 3 Northmen the same way, they'll be killing each other before you can order the charge. He goes, if Stour weren't my son, I'd be forced to say the boy's a fucking prick. Which is interesting. And then he also says that he cares about nothing but his own fame, his own legend. What's a bloody name worth at a market? Warriors. Swear, the more they win, the worse they get. This is Calder. Obviously, and we've known Calder has always had this disdain for those that want to just swing a sword first and ask questions later.
He's very disappointed that his son is one of these people.
and I mean, we'll get into this more, but obviously, Seth, Calder's wife, had died giving birth to Stour, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're and obviously it's kind of like the Leo effect.
Yeah, it's
growing up around those telling stories scale. You know what I mean?
I do find it very interesting, the dynamic between Calder and I do think that even though it's a little bit like on the nose, I think that it is set up really well, the parallel between Stour and Leo, but less so than the characters themselves, like they want you to think, but more so in like in the environment, because and how their parents raised them. Like ironically, Calder and Finry basically raised their sons the same way. Just, you know what I mean? Like, I love that. I like it's such an interesting thing.
I didn't think about it specifically that way before, but like they both have these fucking huge like legacies to fill, and especially Stour having been given a name like at birth. And I like here as well. He says like the eclipse was actually an hour after he was born, but you don't get that. Don't let that get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, very true. And apparently, Calder also makes it known that he had made Wonderful Stour second in order to provide some sense as well. And Stour's got Wonderful almost tearing her hair out if she had any.
I like how she's like, it's like a little nod to being like, she got pulling her hair out. As the audience, you may think, oh, I thought she didn't have hair. I love that.
Yeah.
And I like how we get a little bit of background where Clover's like, all right, I'll do what I can. And Calder's like, yeah, it's all I can ask anyone. That's all anyone can ask anyone else to do. And he goes, you're a straight edge, Clover. You've always been loyal. And then Clover goes, yeah, doubtless. I was loyal to Bethod, then to Glamour Golden, then to Kane Ironhead, now to you. So I was like, well, you were loyal to them all till they put themselves on the losing side. And I like how Clover says that sounds almost exactly like disloyalty, but Calder goes, a man has to bend with the breeze. And I think, isn't that kind of like his thought process, or maybe a realization he had after the whole conversation with Baez after the Heroes?
I mean, I'd say so. Yeah, he's basically got the same mindset. I think that's kind of what the implication is here. Is like he's just like he's the guy now. He's Baez's guy. Like maybe not like as much as he wants to admit.
Not here anymore, I don't think. Why? Because he's attacking.
We should get onto that later, but I think there's something here with Baez being involved. But we should save that for later, definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So,
but you're right, Jeff, in that Calder is extremely pragmatic now, and he knows the way that things work more so than he used to. Like he understands that loyalty isn't just like endless, and if you give someone enough reasons to betray, then eventually they will.
Very true. And we have a bit of a break, and then Clover meets up actually with Wonderful when we get to see Wonderful again for the first time since she fucking betrayed Black Dow. Not really. She didn't really do anything. She just didn't fight for his death. But how dare she? Sweet baby prince. And so they kind of like, there's like a nice little introduction. They talk nothing, she just kind of fills them in of like how the Great Wolf is a bit of a prick. That he's just been any village he just burns villages. He's just going around and setting fire because he's, I don't know, a cunt.
He's a big bad wolf.
Yeah, and then we get to meet him. He comes swaggering down the track. He had been given the name Nightfall as a babe. Like you said during Eclipse, but not really. But no one's there to say. He's long black hair, fine clothes buckled and riveted with gold, and these gray blue eyes that looked always a little wet, as if he was about to cry. Tears of acid contempt for the world and everything in it.
I love that little detail about Stour. Like he's meant to be like this big intimidating guy, but he just kind of looks a bit goofy. It just looks a bit weird.
Yeah, but he says he's not a giant, but you could tell there's like a strength to the way he moved, and he has a bunch of hanger-ons, that famous fighters tend to accumulate. He says he had seen it a bunch of times. Glamour Golden had a crew very similar, which we can expect. He says the Bloody Nine too, and I'm like, but the Bloody Nine's dozen was, a who's who of fighters, or does he mean just people that kind of just like were on the periphery?
I don't know. I think people could see Three Trees and Black Tower and all that and the like as that. If you're not specifically on their side, they could probably appear that way.
Yes.
I mean, with their reputations, I don't know.
Definitely not as bad as this lot, though. Definitely not.
Yeah. But I like how he says times change, but that crowd of cunts stays much the same.
It's a good line.
And it's funny as well because we've just come from Leo as well, who's got a very similar situation going on.
Yeah. It's almost like Joe's giving us the because he's giving us Leo's POV, but not Stowers, right? So he gives us like a POV of somebody like maybe a subordinate of Finry who's tasked with keeping an eye on Leo. This is probably his same thought process. Like, oh my fucking god, these kids. But
that's funny.
Yeah. So he, Stour talks to Clover as to like why, what are you doing here? Explains to him that Calder sent him, keep him on the right path, all that stuff. And so he asks Clover what's his first bit of advice, and Clover jokes about like don't scratch your eyebrow with the sword, which is like that's an odd one, but he.
Fair enough. I mean, he's right.
Yeah, I guess so, right? Clover goes, look, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm just here to give advice. And so he goes, all right, well, Sour goes, we got more villages to conquer. He points towards his valley, and he tells them to try to keep up. And he goes, I want to burn another village or two before sundown. And he goes, okay. And everyone's laughing, and then Wonderful leans into him and she goes, what did I say? Absolute prick.
Yeah, a good introduction to Stour there, being an absolute just a complete piece of shit. It's not very often that Joe writes a character that is just a piece of shit.
Yeah, I feel like you get the vibe. You're like, oh, he's like Ladislaw, right? That's the kind of the vibe. But the thing I do like about this different is he's not just like a northern Ladislaw. He is also like, unfortunately, capable.
Unfortunately capable. That is funny. What would you rate the chapter?
No, it's not great. I like Clover as a character, but this is very much it's a bit, not a lot happens. You just meet Stour and Wonderful's there, and it's like, okay, here we go.
Set it up.
Yeah, I reckon just a 2 for this one.
Oh, okay. Harrison?
I think I'm gonna give it a 2 and a knuckle. I think it's a good introduction, but I pretty much agree. Otherwise, it's like it's pure setup. I mean, that's what you always get at the beginning of these trilogies. Played itself was the same way. You're just like, okay, cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd have to. Yeah, it's a low one. Shit, I guess it'd be a 2 as well too. Trifecta, a low trifecta. I guess we love it. I mean, it's not like, we meet Clover. We get a brief backstory as to like he might have been a bit of a wild child or something when he was younger, because obviously the different name but obviously he's very much let's not get involved unless we absolutely have to, and only if it benefits us, that kind of thing. We get to see Wonderful again. We meet Sour's Shitefall. So there's that, I guess. And I mean, it's pretty much it. There's like a parallel to Leo there, obviously, of course. And we'll see like how things continue on. So with that, we'll move on to our next segment, which is our best meme of the week. Georgie boy, that's a you. Take it away.
Yeah, so this week we have Schlurv, who's a friend of the podcast, who I've been told doesn't actually listen to the podcast, so that's good. But he's been a guest a couple of times, and he's been on the YouTube videos and stuff, and he's always knocking out these great memes. This is a for the memeing every chapter, the little hatred and little public hanging, and he's done 4 ones for this one. So when I'm in an ineffectuality competition, and my opponent is Crown Prince also. Yeah. I won't read them all, but I like the last one especially, where it's like first law romance. Did you mean first law incest?
Jesus.
Oh, which is true. There's just entirely too much incest in these books, but we love it.
At least I think people always say that, they're like, oh, he's trying to be like Game of Thrones, but like they don't know.
Yeah.
Everyone in Game of Thrones knows, and they're like proud of it. You're like, oh, there's a big difference there.
Big
Except Monza.
Yeah. She gets a pass. That's fine.
She gets a pass.
George.
Anyway, yeah. Thank you very much, Fleur, for the meme of the week this week.
Thank you, Fleur.
Oh, that's funny, man.
God, George, we're gonna have to talk off camera. So we move on to our next chapter read through, which is Break What They Love, and we have a reappearance from Stour and Clover and Wonderful here, but this is a Ricka chapter. Apparently, Ricka and Isern are in a stream, stream of water, hiding. So I guess they might be like right up against a riverbank, trying not to let any part of their body show except obviously their faces, so they can breathe. Because they hear a lot of voices, a lot of men.
For a better visualization,
yeah,
that scene in the Fellowship of the Ring where they're hiding from the Nazgul is always what I imagine here, where they're like pressed up, they're like. Oh, yeah. There's like bugs crawling on them, and Rick is like, "Fuck!"
Right? Yeah. Just imagine that, but they're underwater a little bit.
Yes.
That's perfect, Harrison. That's perfect. And funny enough, Isern is obviously like holding on to Rickett so she doesn't make any fucking noise, but she hears, which turns out to be Clover, a man walk up to the riverbank and start pissing in the river, and Wonderful's with him. And they start kind of like talking to each other, the little bit of the banter between these two, intelligent too. But then they obviously have Stour Nightfall walks up to them. And Ricka can hear this because people are like, Chief, the king, Nightfall, the king in waiting, yada, 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 right? And then
the young lion,
the great wolf, and he kind of goes into like a bit of a tantrum. Stour, he goes that it's bloodless so far, but still early. They're thin sauce, these Southerners, always trickling away. The Bloody Nine had Red Three Trees to fight, and Black Dow, and Harding Grim, and all the rest. How is a man meant to win a great name without great enemies to wait against?
Jesus.
Apparently, there's like a pause, and Wonderful goes, "It's a tester, all right." And so here we have Stour. He tells Wonderful that he's got a task for her. That there's a girl out in these woods that he wants her. And they say that, Stour describes her. They say she's got a twitchy way. She'll have a gold ring through her nose, maybe a cross painted over her eye. And this is where Rick is like, this is what I get for, being different and like expressing myself. Like septum piercings are in. They just speak to me. And it also describes how she might have a witch of a hill woman with her. That one you could kill, but the girl we need alive. You could kill the Isern, the crazy one, but we want her. We want the other one because that's the dog man's daughter. And it's like, oof. And Isern keeps having to like tell Ricka to shut the fuck up, like shh, like that. And then Wonderful and Clover ask Stour, like, okay, what happens if we get her? And Stour goes, well, if my father gets her, I dare say he'll ransom her back, dangle her as bait, yada, yada, talking about peace, plans within plans. But Stour sees things differently. How he sees it, the way you break your enemy is you break what they love. Apparently, the way he hears it, those old fools on the other side love that twitching bitch. Sort of a little mascot for them. So if he gets a hold of her, he'll strip her, whip her, pull her teeth out, maybe get some thralls to fuck her, out between the lines where everyone can hear her squealing.
So if you weren't convinced that Stour is indeed a shit, then
yeah.
this proves too.
Yeah. Apparently, Clover sounds even disgusted with this. Basically, just doing terrible, terrible things to her. And Clover.
I like how this whole bit at the end where he's like, "I will send her we'll send her guts, maybe in a nice box, hardwood with some nice engravings."
Maybe I'll put herbs in it.
Too much detail, like for you've been about this too much, man. What the fuck?
Yeah, and talking about like herbs, like packets full of herbs so they don't smell what they're getting, and they're all just kind of like, all right.
Yeah. Everyone's just like, "What the fuck, bro?" I know this is the North, but this is weird.
Yeah, so then Stour goes, all right, so that's your task, and then he fucks off. And then and Rika at this point, hearing all this, she is scared, but she feels like she gets like really, really angry at what she heard, Stour say, because that's some wild shit. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
She would make it her business to see Stour Nightfall fucked by a pig, which is very Black Mirror episode 1-esque. So I
like how wonderful at the end. It's just like, there's nothing in this stream worth catching, I reckon. It's like, it's Hood and Rika right there. That's quite funny.
Yeah, that is funny. And I do like the little bit right before where Rika hears Clover and Wonderful talking about how that's our king in waiting. Not looking forward to this. That's not great.
Guts in a box over yonder.
Jesus.
Yeah. So that's the end of that chapter, boys. How do you rate it?
This one could have just gone with the last chapter. Again, we've just a couple.
I feel like that's all Rika's chapters so far.
Yeah,
it is right now for sure.
Yeah, I reckon a 2 again. But if you combine this one and the last one, they could get a 4 together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just go. What we need is a 2-hour-long Rika chapter, Joe. What the hell are you doing?
It is very tense, though. I like how tensely written it is, where they were hiding in the river, and someone's there, like, who wants to catch you. I think that would be very, it's very tense. But apart from that, go ahead, Aaron.
I think I like this one a lot more, to be honest. I do think it could go with another chapter, but I think it's a good cut-in chapter. I think this is a good use of a chapter kind of cutting into the middle of a different scene or something else popping up, because it is intense. It does have some action purpose going on rather than it just being a throwaway kind of section. So I think I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 9, because even though it's not a lot going on overall, I do think it's a good chapter, and and they have the scene that seems over the top, but it's Stour, and it really is. I think I wonder too, Joe's like, oh, I know I'm pretty ambiguous, but let me be clear. He's like, people made a lot of mistakes with Logan, thinking that he was a good person. Let me be clear on this. So I do like it. So I give 5 out of 9.
Okay. I think I'm gonna give this I like it than the previous chapter, Clover. I like it more. I'll give it a 4. I'll give it a 4 out of 9 fingers. Because of how tensely written it is, like you said, George. It is. I like it. We get more illumination into the shite character that Shitefall is. We see that Clover and Wonderful, we knew this about, Wonderful always came off as very a pragmatic, harsh person, in the heroes, but we see that she's ugh, and we see that about Clover, who's also a person that might be disloyal, but it's hey, this is a tasteful way to go about things, and this is just so, but obviously not much happens here. This is kind of hey, we're looking for Rika, and then it's all right, end scene. So, which, they were looking for Rika for quite some time.
Nothing I like to think they've literally, just from the last chapter, they've just walked down the hill to where the valley is, and they're right there. This is 20 minutes after the end of the last chapter.
I like that, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
I think so. I always picture that also.
So, we're going to go right into our third chapter read-through, actually. And this one is It Was Bad. And this is the introduction to Gunner Broad. Gunnar Broad, a non-divisive character that everyone likes in the Age of Madness trilogy. Gunnar Broad. Gunnar Broad is a bit of background: a Union soldier or former Union soldier, specifically a ladderman. Harrison, would you like to?
So there's the three wars in Styria, and obviously Styria has a lot of cities. So the Union, as this is actually interesting, I find, because the laddermen have their own designation, because the Union is an organized military. So they are the first people to go up the ladders in sieges, and this is probably a fairly new thing, because in Dagosca there was probably a lot more long-term sieges. They obviously had the siege of Oriok and all that, but it's more of a desolate area with a lot more desert and a lot more space in between. So there was a lot more city attacking in Styria, is what I'm trying to get at. And so it's interesting that there's this group of people now that are the first people who go up, and they have a lot of respect, because it would be pretty insane to see somebody like Gunnar Broad, who's been up the ladder. I can't remember how many times he said how many stars he's got, 4 times, and to have survived, and he's the first one up the ladder. So it's kind of madness, in fact, that he's able to do that. So it's very clear very early on that he is a very, very good fighter. In terms of
we see Koska talking about this at the end of Best Served Cobra. It's like, yeah, this is how we weed out the idiots. You promise them 50 scales if they go up the ladder first, and then they die. We don't have to pay them. So the fact that this guy's done it 4 times. Ooh.
Ooh. Yeah, and so obviously Gunnar Broad is returning home from the last war with Styria, I guess. And he has we could just say this is like a case of PTSD he has. Right?
Oh yeah.
And this will become clearer over the book, over the next, over the trilogy. He comes back home and to Liddy and May, his wife and his daughter. Sees her, he knocks on the door to his own house. She opens it and she goes, "What the fuck?" And he starts crying. He starts crying and she hugs him. "It's okay." And he goes, "It was bad, wasn't it?" And he goes, "It was bad. It was bad." And then he goes, "But you're home now." And he's crying again. It was like, "Oh, this is nice. This is sweet." And so, there's obviously a bit of a break, and May, chopping wood, the thunk of the axe, it makes him flinch. So there's that, that's what I mean, where you see that first instance. Well, no, that's the second instance of PTSD. The other is breaking down of just the trauma in front of Liddy. And apparently he got some lenses, glasses, in the last war, because he saved Lord Marshal Miderick, which is a nice little drop. Oh, Miderick has ascended well, we knew that, but he's the Lord Marshal now, and he's been doing well.
We also don't get very much. He's a ladderman, right? So obviously he is somebody who's going up the ladders. Very low self-preservation. Miderick is in the Union, they don't really. Miderick is obviously headstrong, but he's not going up the ladder. So this implies that more than likely, this is totally theory based. No evidence for this. Is that Monza probably did some sort of maneuver that attacked their camp?
Yeah,
and he was there.
Broad says there was an ambush.
Oh, he does say it. Okay, my bad. I missed that part. But yeah, it's kind of weird.
Funny if Rick was just up there on the walls with them.
He's like, "Glory, honor,
forward, man.
Charge! It's perfect ground for a charge. Run the horses up the wall."
Drive them back into their walls. Anyways, it is weird to think of. There's a lot of these mentions inside of this trilogy where a character is mentioned in the same vein as another character, and we're like, "Oh, it's an Easter egg."
Mm-hmm. And obviously, this points out as well that Broad is severely long-sighted, right?
Far-sighted, I think.
Far-sighted, yeah.
Yes. Ironic.
Very ironic.
Yeah. Ironic. And so he's talking to Liddy because Liddy comes out, tells May to stop asking about the war and stuff, and then he goes, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna check on our flock though first before I start fixing up the house, because with these new mills, the price for wool's never better. And he asks her, like, oh, are they up the valley? And then they're like, uh-oh. And Liddy tells him that they don't have a flock anymore. She wanted to give him a proper night's sleep without having to worry, but Lord Isher fenced the valley in, said we couldn't graze there anymore. And then Broad goes, what? The valley's common land, always has been. And she goes, not anymore. King's edict. It's happening all over. Next valley too. We had to sell the flock to him. And now, George, I'm going to ask you about this, but in a second. He goes, we had to sell him our sheep, so he can graze them on our land. Is what gonna ask her, and she goes, yeah. He gave us a good price. Some lords didn't give their tenants that much, and so this doesn't work without a flock, right? And he's mad. He gets really mad. And so he apologizes for how mad he gets. But she goes, look, Liddy goes, look, we got no choice. Isher offered to buy us out, and we've got to go. Valbeck, she's thinking, working Valbeck, blah, blah, blah. And obviously, when the three guys come over, George, I want to ask you about this, because obviously this seems like something that has happened in British history, right?
This was called the enclosure movement. And the one thing that Joe does like to do is he likes to accelerate the timescales of these things. So this happened over a course of around 100 years. So it would usually be like the next generation that it would affect. But this is pretty much what would happen. Yeah, they'd take all of the individual small farms and people that were using common land and just completely fence it off and be like, well, it's mine now. It doesn't belong to you anymore. And oftentimes there wasn't any money exchanged either. It was just a fact of, this land's mine now. So
basically, Lord Isher comes in and says, I'm taking your sheep, but really what he means is I'm taking your land.
Yes. Well, right? In this case, they bought the sheep off them, which would still be a thing. But the land itself was never theirs in the first place because they all lived on common land.
Right.
So they can't be bought off it in the same way that you might if you owned it.
I see.
But he did buy the land too because he's fencing it, right?
Yeah, well, you don't. That's what I mean. Like the king just says, no, this is Lord Isher's land now. And because Isher has to pay more taxes, then he has to fence off the land so that he can graze sheep, so that he can use the wool to make his profits, rather than the profits all go into the people that work the land. Cheerful bit of history there.
Yeah. So while Liddy's filling him in, Gunnar notices that 3 people are riding up to the house. 1 on a horse, 2 on a wagon. One of the people on the wagon is Leonard Seldom, which is a funny last name, and who's the miller's younger brother. And Gunnar always thought of him as a coward, and nothing in his shifty squint now to change his opinion. So they tell May to get inside while they wait for these 3 to come to get closer. And the other 2, Broad doesn't know. The one on the wagon has a big flatbow across his knees, but not loaded. And the other one...
Are you sure he didn't produce that flatbow out of nowhere?
Love that. I forgot. Love it. Love it. And the last rider, he's big and bearded, fancy cavalry sword, fancy 3-cornered hat on his head.
Joe and his hats too, man.
Yeah. So they pull up to them and they introduce themselves, and then he goes, so where'd you get the lenses, Gunnar? And he goes, in Styria. He goes, how was it? It was bad. And so they introduce themselves as the skinny one that with the flat bow is Abel, and the other one is, I forget what the other one's name is, Marsh. Do we know Marsh? No?
I don't think we've ever had somebody called Marsh. No.
Well, let's find out if we ever met him before. Folks, another call to arms to shit in the Adeptus Historical's face.
I'm super sure that we haven't met Marsh before. Are you gonna do this with every character, Jeff?
I was going to say, that's going to be a hard one to search through in the books. Like, how many times is an actual Marsh mentioned, for fuck's sake?
Yeah, a lot. So we'll see. So he talks. So they introduce themselves, and they talk about how they work for Lord Isher, and this what they do is like they buy a property, mostly this and that this is Isher's Valley. And then Broad immediately goes, "This part of it isn't," and they're like, "Oh boy." And Seldom goes, "You can't make a living here, Gunner. You know that now. Not now that there's no grazing." To be fair to Isher, the kings hiked up his taxes neck high to play for his bloody wars. There's land getting fenced in all over, worked with machines. And Gunner gets...
I love capitalism.
Yeah, and yeah. And then Gunner gets mad. He goes like, "My father died on this land fighting the Gurkish." And Seldom goes, "Look, mine too. But what can I do? Just what you do. If you don't, somebody else will. Progress." So it turned out all those others, right? Lance and his daughters and the Barrows and old Neiman. And Seldom says Neiman died, but the rest sold up. And so he goes, "Why is my wife still here then?" And Seldom, he looks at Liddy and he looks back at Broad. He goes, "I just wanted to give her some more time because we all know each other." And Broad interrupts and says, "Because you always liked her." He understands. "I like her myself. That's why I married her."
Oh, gross.
And Liddy at this point goes, "Gunner, like, come on, stop it, please." And he goes, "Why she married me, I can't say, but she did." And Seldom goes, "All right, look, come on, friend." He goes, "I wasn't your friend before I left, and I'm even less your friend now." And Marsh at this point, he goes, "That's enough." He nudges his horse forward, and he's like pretty much almost on top of Broad. And he goes, "Look, this is happening one way or another. No point being stubborn. Better for you to leave with a little money in your pocket." And then Gunner goes, "Better than what?" And Marsh...
He pulls the old, "It's a nice house you got here. It's a shame if something were to happen to it."
"One night it might catch fire." And then at that point, Broad that's enough for Broad. He goes, "Oh, catch fire, huh?" And he, instead of like swinging at Marsh, he just grabs his foot and upends him off the saddle.
Which is it's a cool. Joe's so good at his fight scenes. Like, just yeets him. Like, Broad's a strong enough guy to grab somebody's leg and just throw him off the horse. It's awesome.
Yeah, and so he yeets him off the saddle, but he's still caught up in the stirrup, and he's trying to get himself free because he's on the ground now. Broad just walks over to him and catches his wrist, twists it up, and snapped his wrist or his elbow. Put his head on the chopping block of where the yaks was, like where they were chopping wood. And just stomps on his fucking face, basically, right?
Goddamn.
Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3 times until basically just crunching. And Abel's like, "What the fuck?" And Broad gets to him pretty quickly before he's even to get to load a bolt, and he gives he rams Abel into the gatepost, his head. A bunch of times until like his shit spatters and smashes.
He's and like the way that Broad fights is like the way Kingpin fights in Daredevil.
It's like who that? Oh yeah. You're right. He does fight like that. Yes. And so then he just jumps onto the wagon, and Seldom's like, "Oh my God, Gunner, wait!" And then and Gunner goes, "Yeah, nope," and he just starts hitting him, starts punching him. To the point where Seldom's face is just a mess of red. And Broad looks at him, looks at Abel's body, looks at Marsh's body, and then looks over at Liddy, and it's just like, whoops. And she's just staring, in shock. And he doesn't know what to say. Can't see shit because he took off his lenses, right? At this point, when he goes, "All right, this is about to go down." And he's blind, and he goes, he doesn't know what to say. Liddy didn't say anything. What was there to say? And that's the end of that chapter. Boys, how do you rate it? What do you have to say about it?
I really like Broad as a character, for one thing. I think this is a really good introduction, and it kind of shows us a lot of what's been going on in the Union and the way that a lot of people how a lot of people are being disaffected. It's similar to Vic. Obviously, Vic's a double agent, but we still get that perspective.
And you did get that perspective kind of with Savine when you saw like the kid guiding her and like just the living conditions.
Yes,
absolutely. I really enjoy this chapter. I do like a lot of people compare Broad to Logan, especially, but I don't think he's like Logan at all. He's not even angry. He's just like, well, these guys have got to die. So
yeah, he feels more like kind of like, honestly, I still stick by that, Kingpin, like he's like, just gotta do what I gotta do. I said, he's got his own justifications or whatever in the back of his mind, but really he's just a rageful, angry man at society because his life was hard. Like,
It's almost like having a load of fighting age men who are disaffected from society. It's a bad thing.
It's a bad thing. Yes.
Almost so I would give this one a 5. I really enjoy kind of Broad's character, but I think there's only a little bit of development here. Obviously, it's just an intro as well, but it's he's not wasting any time, is he? He gets back, and then they have to leave again at the end of the chapter.
Seriously, it's the same day too. Like he didn't. Jesus,
it's depressing. I think it's a really good chapter too. I think I'm going to give it a 7 because I really like how it sets up everything. I think it's a better introduction than like Clover's setup. So like Clover's setup is super nonchalant. It's like very, and not that it has to be super intense, but like the North is bad, and it's very, with Clover's perspective, which is fine. It's very like fanciful and fun until certain parts of the story, and whereas here is like, oh, this really feels like Joe's universe. Like, this is shit. These people are just doing what they can. These guys kind of deserve it. It's got some action. It's really brutal, but not like in the big combat way. It's all just like with his hands and his feet. So I think it's a really good introduction overall to his character and the perspective of the Union that he has. So I like it.
I am struggling because I think it's a good introductory chapter. Not going as high as a 7. I don't know if I'm gonna go as low as a 4. There's a good introduction. I don't know how much development there is for me. I could tell like, okay, PTSD, that's interesting. Because it's like that would be, I think, Joe's like first foray into PTSD. If we're honest, I could be wrong. I'll give it a 5. Decent introduction. The development is basically, he's a ladderman, and he apparently easily loses his shit. But let's be honest. I mean, Marsh, one of the last things that Marsh said was, he also said it would be a shame if your lovely wife and daughter was, we didn't even get to like why.
Yeah,
even,
you can't blame him.
Yeah. So
yeah.
We obviously, and like I think George, you mentioned it, like we get a better sense of the conditions of the Union now at this point, where it's like now we're at the part where they're disaffecting so much of the population that it's obviously creating conditions ripe for somewhat awesome alteration or a great change.
The large switch up.
The large switch up.
The
giant come up.
Hostile takeover.
Hostile takeover. Love it. So yeah, I'll give it a 5. With that, we'll go into our final segment, which is our character spot. Boys, who are we highlighting?
The 3 fellas. So we got Marsh.
Oh, the 3
Abel,
fellas. I thought it was just the one.
Well, you might as well clump them all into one here.
Oh,
they're all pretty much the same guy, aren't they?
Okay.
I've completely forgotten his name now. Something Leonard Seldom. That's his name.
Mm-hmm. Leonard Seldom. Okay.
Yeah. And these 3 guys are obviously just they're going around on the behest of Lord Isher to get rid of all of those people that don't want to leave their land that they've probably been living on for generations.
How dare they?
Threatening.
They should know their place.
Yeah, they should.
How dare they?
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They're the only ones that are going to be like left better off from this whole thing. They've sold out.
Yeah.
They're scabs, little fuckers.
Scabs.
They deserve what they got.
All right, we know who's the commie here.
That always has been.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know much about Marsh or Abel. But again, folks, do your due diligence. But we don't know anything about him. We know that Leonard grew up in that valley. He's the son of a miller there. I they must have known each other. At least him and Broad and Liddy have known each other, for a long time. And then, like you said, he sells out, you could say, or he decides to just work for the powers that be. And for his effort, he gets his face smashed in.
For his effort? You mean to take somebody else's wife? That was his end goal, bro.
One thing I do remember, when I first read this the first time, for some reason, I had it in my head that Seldom and Abel and Marsh had killed somebody before. And I was thinking like, oh, is it old Neiman? But Seldom just says, oh, he just died. But the others, saw sense and sold. So are we saying he died because of old age, or did you think they killed him?
I don't know. I think it's fairly ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the way, he says here, he says Neiman died, but the rest sold up. And then Abel says, oh, we made him see the sense in it. And he's like fiddling with his flat bow.
Yeah.
I reckon that could be, maybe they just shot him or something.
Yeah. Probably.
I mean, I'm not giving these guys any kind of benefit of the doubt whatsoever. No, they definitely killed that guy.
You think they definitely killed that guy? Okay. Whoopsies.
But it's just like a totally avoidable situation. Like if Broad didn't want to go, they could have just gone like, well, maybe there's a job that Isha could have you do. He's a big, strong man. Maybe he could move the family in and let them graze the sheep like they used to. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. But instead, they had to threaten to burn the house down and kidnap his wife and daughter. And it's just like, that's a bad idea.
Not a great idea. Not great. No. Yeah. Well, Leonard Seldom, we hardly knew ye, and we won't miss ye.
No, not at all.
That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support means so much.
Join us next week as we cover A Sea of Business, Fencing with Father, and Fencing with Father.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media or shoot us an email at circletheworldpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
Tart, but tolerable.